Hey guys, welcome to BMW blog, and today we're back with another test drive. Oh, wait. I'm inside the car by myself, so I think I should be okay, doing this without the mask. So once again, thanks for watching BMW blog. We are back today with a new review, this time the new Mini Cooper SE Electric. It's actually the second time that I have a chance to drive the car. First time was a few months ago, back in January. We were in Miami when the car was just launched, and we had a chance to sample it for a few hours. But this time around, they decided to give me the car for about a week. So I live in Chicago, so I had a chance to drive the car a little bit, not as much as I wanted to, clearly because of the COVID-19, the pandemic. So I tried to stay inside, but at the same time, I was trying to pick some routes where there are not too many people and maybe take a few photos and do a review, which brings me to the new Mini Cooper SE. Once again, it's the first electric production Mini from Oxford. Of course, they've done another electric car about 10 years ago. It was called the Mini E. It was actually most of a test trial. It was available in just a few markets and only available to selected customers. And 10 years later, now they decided to bring the car to the market. The original Mini E was actually the car that led to the BMW i3, the beautiful carbon fiber construction of the first BMW electric car. And now the Mini Cooper SE actually builds upon the BMW i3. So basically it's using kind of the same technology. The electric motor comes from the i3S. So it makes 182 horsepower, 199 pounds-feet of torque. It's quite fast, especially when you go from 0 to 40 miles per hour. You can actually feel that push. It's also using the battery pack from the i3S. So projected driving range on a full charge, it's about 125 miles. Of course, that can vary quite a bit, especially if you live in a place like Chicago, where the weather can be tricky. The winters are extremely long and extremely cold. So it's fair to assume that if it's cold outside, your driving range, especially if you're using the heat, it will probably drop at least 20%. But like I said, best case scenario, about 125, and I actually managed to test that in Miami and in Chicago as well, and I was able to get pretty close to that. There were times when I had to turn off the AC, and if it was warm outside, I was basically just lowering my windows. So just doing some tricks in order to extend that range. As you can see, when it comes to city driving, that's kind of where the electric cars want to live in. I mean, basically, the more traffic that you have, the longer range you're going to get. So if you're in a stop and go traffic, if you need to brake quite often, if you're actually using one of the regen braking options that's in the car, more on that in a second, then you're basically going to extend your range a little bit more. Of course, if you go on the highway and you're speeding a little bit, let's say you're doing 60, 70 miles per hour, then of course that range will drop. Once again, this is a city car. Just like the BMW i3, it might not look like a city car, but it's definitely a car made for the city. In many cases, I believe that the Mini Cooper SE, it's the second car of the family. It's the car that you want to take out and have a lot of fun. Of course, if your commute it's not that long, if you have access or easy access to a charging station, you can of course use the Mini Cooper SE as a primary vehicle. Charging, speaking of charging, there are different levels, so you can charge on a household outlet, or you can actually go with a level 2 charging station. Of course, I would prefer you to plug it into a fast charging station, which will give you 0 to 80% charge in about 30 to 35 minutes. So that's quite spectacular, especially if you're going to, let's say Chicago has a lot of Whole Foods and they do have fast charging stations. You can actually go there, do your shopping, and at the same time charge your car. The infrastructure, it's not as great as I want it to be in Chicago. There's still a small number of charging station, level 3 fast charging, but if you plan your route accordingly, you can take advantage of those. Once again, design-wise, not much different from the regular Mini, and that was kind of the idea. That's what Mini guys told me when I first went to Miami. They said, well, we wanted the car to not really stand out too much. We wanted to look like a Mini, to feel like a Mini. So on the outside, they decided to keep it pretty close to a regular Mini Cooper. So basically, you're getting these yellow accents, which might indicate that, or will indicate that this is an electric car. Of course, at the front, you have the closed-up grille, so another indication of the electric car. If you go to the back, there are no exhaust pipes. So if nothing gave it away before that, then that will definitely do it. Love the design. Always love the design of the Mini Cooper. It always stayed true to their DNA, to their iconic features. So I'm actually happy that they decided to just make it look like a regular car. You're not buying this car to go and stand out. It's not an i8, definitely not an i3, which it's a great car. I have one. I enjoy driving the car. It's extremely fun. It's the carbon fiber construction is phenomenal. You don't really see that today, and it just looks quirky. It just looks a little bit weird, you know, and that's okay. I actually love the space inside, but at the same time, if you want to be in a good-looking car and you want to try something different, you know, a little bit maybe sportier looking, then you will get into the Mini Cooper SE. As far as the driving experience, the car, it's a little bit heavier than the regular Mini Cooper. It's about 145 kilos. I think that's about 320 pounds. So it's heavier because of the battery pack. Same battery pack that comes from the BMW i3. It's actually situated in a T shape underneath the center console, and that actually helps, you know, lowering the center of gravity a little bit, and it just makes the car a little bit more sportier. Compared to the BMW i3, the Mini Cooper SE stays true to the front wheel drive architecture. So the engine, it's in the front, compared to the i3 where it sits in the back, so it's a rear wheel driven car. Of course, I expect the Mini Cooper SE to drive a little bit better in the winter. And of course, if you're getting, you know, winter tires on both cars, you should be able to get by just fine. So being a Mini, you're getting that Mini go-kart feeling, and now having that instant torque, it just makes the car even more fun to drive. And you can see here it's a bit of an open space, so I can show you this, and you can see overtaking can be done really easily. I mean, the car, it's quick. So I've showed you the, you know, city driving with a little bit of traffic. Now I'm on a, you know, open highway. You can see the car, you know, just being extremely smooth. You know, I love the acceleration. I mean, the acceleration is one of my favorite parts in the BMW i3 as well. And it's kind of the same feeling in the Mini Cooper SE. When it comes to the steering and the steering feedback, it's exactly what you expect from a Mini. So you are getting a little bit of an understeer, but it's quite responsive actually. It's not as precise as I wanted it to be. But at the same time, this is not a car that you want to take to the track, but you just really want to, you know, have a city commuter, comfortable ride. And that's exactly what this steering will actually give you. It's still responsive enough if you want to, you know, overtake quickly or have a little bit of fun, especially if there's some curves or maybe exit ramps, you can definitely do that. But I prefer to drive my electric cars quite calmly, and that's exactly what I'm doing with the Mini Cooper SE as well. Now let's speak a little bit about the braking. So as I mentioned earlier, compared to the BMW i3, you actually have two different stages of regen braking. So you're having a high setting, which basically will give you the maximum amount of energy to improve your range. So that's a little bit different than the i3, where you're only getting one stage, but you're also having a low setting, which is a little less aggressive. It's probably meant for people that are not yet used to, you know, using the one pedal driving in an electric car. So if you're getting the car for the first time, I would suggest to start with that, because basically it will ease you in. It's not gonna jerk you around too much. It's not gonna make you throw up or dizzy. So I would say start with that. Once you get used to it, I would just switch over to the high setting, and I will try to gain as much range as possible when I drive. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do right now. So I was in low, and I'm gonna switch it to high. And as soon as I get some stop and go traffic, I'm gonna try to show you that. So as you can see, if I lift up the pedal, you know, it stops a little sooner than it would in the low regen, and that's exactly what I want. And I think in time, once you get to learn the car, you're going to anticipate the traffic in front of you. You will know when to lift up the braking pedal. So that's the beauty of the regen braking. I definitely suggest, you know, playing around with those settings. It's one of the nice things about having an electric car, especially when you're in traffic, because you're going to gain more range, you're going to save that energy, you're going to regen more, and it will just help you go a little bit further. When it comes to the interior design, typical Mini design, two LCD screens, one in front of me, right behind the steering wheel. It's the one that's going to show you information like driving range, the battery charging. It's going to show you if you're driving efficiently. So on the left side, you have a digital needle that's going to tell you, hey, you know, you're not very efficient right now. Maybe slow down a little bit and you're going to save some energy. If you move to the center, you're getting the typical Mini dashboard, the infotainment system with all the latest features, all the apps, and basically there is no difference really from a conventional Mini. You can also see some of the yellow accents spread throughout the car, in the center a little bit here, so another indication you're in an electric car in case you didn't know by now. Another thing that I love inside the Mini, it's the head-up display. It's height adjustable, so you can adjust that based on your sitting position. I love it because you can easily see all the relevant information that you need when driving. So it's a nice feature to have. I'm actually glad that it's standard in the car. So when it comes to pricing, I mentioned this before, the car starts at about a little bit below $30,000, and you are getting the $7,500 tax credit from the feds. Basically because this is a Mini brand and the BMW Group has yet to reach the threshold, you are getting the full discount from the feds. So basically that will lower the price to around $22,000. Now, if you live in some of the eco-friendly states or the states that love to promote sustainable energy in electric cars like Colorado, you're actually getting a few $1,000s additional in discounts, and which could bring the car below $20,000 threshold. I've actually seen it as low as $18,000, which I believe it's a phenomenal price for a premium car. It's not something that you see in every single model out there, and especially not in an electric car. So even if you're using this as a second car, as a second family car, it's not going to break the bank. As you can see, I'm back in a stop and go traffic a little bit, and you get a chance to also see Chicago downtown from the other side. Again, let's touch a little bit on the driving experience, especially since I really wanted to compare this one to my i3. It's a different type of driving experience, especially with the i3 being a rear-wheel drive. You're getting a lot more tail spin. It's got a different driving behavior on the highway. It sits a little bit higher. The wheels are definitely narrower, so especially if you drive on the highway quite fast and there's a little bit of wind, but it always winds in Chicago, then the car is going to wobble a little bit, it's going to shift a little bit, so it's just a strange feeling. Of course, if you're getting the i3S, it's a little bit better, but the Mini Cooper just doesn't have that. It's a well-planted car on the road, just like the regular Mini. So that's one difference in the driving experience. At the same time, the i3 feels a little bit more nimble, a little bit more interesting to drive, I would say. I do love the carbon fiber construction, something that we're probably never going to see in a BMW anytime soon, especially a full-blown carbon fiber chassis. So that's a little bit different than the Mini Cooper SE. I've also talked a little bit about the performance. So according to Mini, have had a chance to really test it from 0 to 30 miles per hour, so about 0 to 45 kilometers. You can go in about 3.2 seconds, so that's extremely quick. And if you want to run the full sprint, 0 to 62 miles per hour, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, that's going to take about 7.3 seconds. Once again, untested, but I do trust them, and they usually BMW tries to understate their performance, so maybe you're able to actually beat that time as well. So should you buy the Mini Cooper SE? I believe that if you're in the market for an electric car, if you want to be the next gen customer, the sustainable type of customer, the eco-friendly one, then there is no reason why you should not look at the Mini Cooper SE. Aside from all the things that I mentioned earlier, the typical Mini design, which I like, the premium materials inside, the premium look, and of course the performance that comes from the i3, and as I mentioned earlier, it's quite quick. And on top of this, you're also getting an extremely affordable price. Starts below $30,000. By the time you take all the credits from the feds, you're down to 22, as I've already mentioned. living in friendly states below 20,000. So now you're kind of that spot where you really have no choice but to really go test drive one. I believe you will like the car. If you do have the funds for an electric car, you're looking for a second family car, then you should absolutely try it. I truly believe it's one of the good electric cars that are on the road. And if you do love the BMW Group products, the Mini Cooper SE, it's an extremely attractive offering, and I encourage you to at least go test drive one and put your name down on the list for a future model. As always, thanks for watching. This is Horatio with BMW Blog. Go to the BMW Blog YouTube channel, subscribe, hit that notification, and stay tuned for a lot more videos coming up. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. As you can see, this is clearly the COVID-19 haircut. It's probably a staple right now in many countries, or probably a lot of bald men today. So I wanted initially to go with a mini hat, but I decided to just show my hairstyle.